Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Vronich of statewide news service jbiztechvalley.com. And as you can see, there's now the columnist for the Jewish press.
Yep, and I tell people how government impacts the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. And someone else who tells us how the government impacts our lives is our guest today, Bill Samuels.
Thank you, Rabbi Mark.
Yeah, Bill, it's so good to have you here. Thank you very much for coming up from New York, and thank you for being here.
Well, let's be careful. I did start in Canandaigua, New York, so I did grow up upstate.
Yes.
And there wasn't a synagogue in Canandaigua, New York, but there were a few Jewish families like ours.
And I think Manischewitz wine is near.
Yes, well, there's a lot of good wine in Canandaigua, but when I lived there, I was too young to drink it.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But
you go into the fields, maybe.
Mark told me something that was very discouraging.
Oh,
he said,
what's that?
Even if I do really well today on your show, and you like what I say, that I probably don't get invited back because you have so many great guests that you have to be in the top 1% of 1%
I'm sure
to get
you're going to
invited
be
back.
it over
But
here.
you'll be the exception. We'll have you back again.
You'll be the top.
I congratulate you on your work. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And I don't want to say that, but your father ran for governor way back when in 1974, amongst other times. But
Mario Cuomo was his
running
lieutenant
mate.
governor. They were both outstanding men, and they both lost.
Yeah.
Samuels has never won an election.
And why is that?
Well,
what is it about your viewpoints and your views that don't connect?
Well, my father was a Democrat,
Howard Samuels.
Howard Samuels, but he was a businessman. He was very practical, and I would say he was a centrist. And in Democratic primaries, normally you got to be a little more to the left. But I'm very proud to be his son. A lot of the work that I do is to honor him. Mm-hmm. He was just a wonderful man who really cared to contribute to our state, and I think he made a nice contribution in his own way.
Well, David Patterson once told me that his father, Basil Patterson, ran for lieutenant governor and didn't win. And he says, well, I'm going to show him how to win. And
he was a great man,
when
too.
When he ran with Elliot Spitzer, he obviously won and then became governor. So his father was very proud of him.
I think it's important for the Jewish community and for business people to give back and participate in their community. Each of us makes a little impact, but when you add all the littles up, it makes our state a better place to live.
There's been two Jewish governors.
Yeah, well,
Mark's our historian, New York State
Herbert
historian.
Lehman and Elliot Spitzer, not to say. Herbert Lehman, actually, because this area in the 20s was very different than it looks today.
Right.
And there was a synagogue right near the Capitol. It's now a church, but he used to go to services. It was a Reform synagogue on Swan Street, and he used to go there for services. Elliot Spitzer, took out the kosher kitchen that Mario Cuomo put in, so in the mansion, in the executive mansion. So, there was no, and he didn't have a bar mitzvah, not to say that he needed one, because when you're 13,
we have to do more shows. We've lost some of our influence, right?
I really
that's why you're on there. That's what we have.
I want to have Elliot Spitzer on the show.
All right. That's your job, Mark.
Maybe we can have a bar mitzvah for him.
Yeah. As long as it's not a circumcision. That's
right.
all.
That's right. Anyhow, you are doing a program. You have a company now called EffectiveNY, Effective New York. Tell us about that. Why did you start that?
I'm very disappointed that over the last 10 years, we haven't changed the culture in Albany at all. You and I were talking about the list of corruption.
I want you to show people the...
Well, he's got...
I tucked it away.
All right, there you go.
And it's small print because I'm going to keep it to a...
Being the oldest guy here, I think. Yes, me.
I'm 29, so you're right. Maybe.
And you're 60.
Let's go back to 1910.
Okay.
FDR, as a 28-year-old, is elected to the state senate. He already has 4 children. He comes up to Albany and says, I'm no longer going to practice law. I'm going to devote my full time to being a state senator.
Even though, just say that really officially or technically, these are all part-time jobs.
Part-time jobs.
Technically,
and he committed to do
so
it
you
full-time.
are allowed to be a lawyer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Then he considered, I'll call it the bad guys, but the enemies, to be Senator Wagner, okay, and Al Smith, because they were from New York City, Tammany Hall.
Are we talking about Robert Wagner?
The original one.
Okay, the senior, okay.
Don't ask me to remember
Okay,
all
fine.
the details of the family, but the governor was an outstanding Republican governor, Hughes, who went on to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Look at the quality of the people that were willing to serve in public service. Compare that to my Democratic Party, who went from Malcolm Smith, Sampson, before them, Pedro Espada. So part of our problem, and what I focus on, how to make us proud of our legislature again. How to make us feel we have the best Democratic Party and the best Republican Party. How do we get more people to say, you know what, I may not make a lot of money, but I want to go into public service and do good, like you do, okay? And as an older person, okay, my contribution is to think about the reforms and the changes that can make us prouder of Albany.
Well, one of the ideas that's always thrown out there, maybe a pay raise. So if people have enough money, they don't feel like, well, I better get something on the side, or obviously
Absolutely.
a little illegal. So you for pay raises?
Yes, and I'll be very specific. The old idea of Ralph Nader of citizen legislators and you get paid $500, that's yesterday. This is very complex. We have a, $160 billion budget. I think it's time we recognize that if we want good politicians, they got to serve full-time and follow the congressional rules. Congressmen can make $15,000 outside their salary, period.
But their salary keeps going up.
And their salary, I
automatically.
think, is $180.
But it goes up automatically. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's a
have
good
to be
point.
voted on, right?
The city council, city councilmen are 112.
Yeah.
Albany's 79. Now, in Canandaigua, New York, where I'm from, 79 is a pretty decent salary. But it isn't statewide. So I, recommend full-time legislature, and we will give anyone that's willing to be full-time $125,000 base. If they want to continue to be a business consultant or lawyer, then no raise. But in the long run, I think we just have to realize this is a job. We want people to be experts in it.
So now you're 72 years old, is what I.
Would you
did
say
in my
that again?
research. In my research,
thought
I
you were-
found out that you were
Third-
72.
Ah, gee, I can't hear you.
39,
Yeah.
39. He'll take half of that.
1943
half
to
of
be
that.
exact. My brother's birthday is
Well,
February
thank
10th.
you.
So,
Oh, well, wonderful.
but you, and you went to MIT, you went to Harvard Law School. You're no slouch on on your education. So, what will it take besides money to bring in good people, whether they have to give up their current profession or move on?
Well, it's certainly not just money. When you go to Congress, you serve on a committee, and those committees do real work. I mean, just look at the committee that had Clinton in for testifying.
Yeah, right.
You come to Albany, there's committees, they don't meet. All the power is consolidated at the top. We talk about 3 men in the room. Well, 3 men in the room is not good. Because if you're someone that really wants to serve and you come up here and you're not in the room, the committees meet for 10 minutes sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
Okay? You're bored out of your mind. I can think of a young new assemblyman, Todd Comiskey.
Yeah.
And Todd will tell you he really wants to make a contribution, but he's bored.
He was a former federal prosecutor.
Yes. So what you need...
And Mel Brooks's grandnephew.
Yes, good. Well, that's good. I was just with him the other day. You have to have, a legislature that takes seriously the committee process.
Yeah.
I challenge the governor to make one fundamental reform. He can do it himself.
Right.
Stand up. He will not sign a bill that comes to his desk if it hasn't gone through a committee and had public hearings. Right away, there's a job. You have to go to committee hearings. You have to take a vote in the hearings. You have to ask and the public to testify. The SAFE Act is very controversial. And without taking a position on gun control one way or another, I'll tell you what I didn't like about it. There are no committee hearings. Cuomo, with the 2 legislative leaders, said, there's an emergency. The bill was passed. Now that leads to disrespect of the legislative process. So what we also have to do is make the job a real job and hold you accountable.
Do you think that the governor is using these executive orders a little bit too freely and is abusing that?
You know, as I said, my father ran with Mario. Mario was very nice as governor. He allocated money from the legislature to honor my father. There's an Institute on Government Practices. I was an Andrew Cuomo fan. I'm not now. And one reason is I think he's the old culture. Perfectly, I think he's honest. I think he's dedicated to public service. He's clearly done some good things, but it hasn't changed the culture at all. It's just as corrupt as it has been. And part of change in Albany, there has to be leadership at the top that really wants it. And he's spent so much time in Albany, he's comfortable with the old culture. So as far as I'm concerned, Andrew will have had his 8 years, and he'll be an okay governor. But he's not going to bring the change. So I think we need new leadership at the top. We need totally new roles. And that's why one of EffectiveNY's priorities is to have vigorous debate on whether we have a people's convention, which is on the ballot in 2017. It's required every 20 years.
There'll be a new York State Constitution.
Whether there should be a review. The last one was done in '67, and it had some fascinating things in it. Now, whether you're for it or not, it's an opportunity for us to say, what should we change? We have some provisions in our Constitution that were written in 1894 in a horse and buggy time, and we still run our state that way. So I think the debate in 2017 requires many of us that are more intellectual and thoughtful to take a look at some of our history and say there are things we ought to debate. We ought to be open to change.
Now, do you think that if there's, I know you want a participatory government, but doesn't it get too mired in muck if it's too much, if it's too participatory?
Do you know how serious a question that is?
Yeah, I do know. Because one thing that I'm asking is that, you know, when Eliot Spitzer was governor, he had these open, in the Red Room, in the second floor of the Capitol, he had the open leaders' meetings, and he had open budget hearings and meetings, and we got to see allegedly what people would talk about across the table. Of course, it was structured, it was scripted, and there was a lot less of the frankness that probably is the words that are used behind closed doors. So I don't know. I'm just wondering if maybe it gets to, because we don't have all year to pass these budgets and session, that we should just, that fewer people make better decisions. There are too many cooks.
Well, first of all,
it's a very serious question.
It is. I think about this all the time.
Too many cooks spoil the broth or something.
It's a mix. Quick history.
Yeah. Okay.
When in 1786, as we're looking at the Articles of Confederation and whether we should have a central constitution, Jefferson, Madison, Jefferson, etc., they felt we should be fully participatory, unlike England. That both houses, the Senate and the House, should be elected by the people. It got compromised. The Senate was to be appointed by the wise men. Now, eventually, we elected it in 1913. England, to this day, would never think of electing the prime minister like Donald Trump running around in all these primaries. So there is a role for the wise men and pros that really know what they're talking about to make certain decisions. And there are times that you want really robust input. And that's a give and take that's going on all the time. But you've asked a fundamental question. When I think about reforms, I'm trying to come up with that balance because it's a difficult issue.
Now, when I mentioned money before, I was referring to campaigns. Do you help candidates that you like fund their campaigns?
I used to. I was financed, when Elliott, before he became governor, I was the vice chair of the state senate to take back the state senate. And in 2008, I became finance chair for the state senate. I brought in 30% of the money, non-pay to play. So I've been on the inside, I've seen it, and I ran fundraiser after fundraiser. I finally looked at the end result of those years. I didn't see any change. And as a result, I resigned from the Democratic caucus when they took Pedro Espada back, ousted him, and I now focus on big ideas, policy, thinking, and I do not do very much fundraising for candidates anymore.
But do you tap someone on the shoulder and say, you know, I know your character, I know that you would be good in the legislature, you know, you really should run?
Oh, absolutely. I had lunch today with a woman I just met. I know her name's Sarah, I can't remember her last name, but she's outstanding. And when Hakeem Jeffries was thinking of running for Congress, and I'd worked with Hakeem, I put some major money people behind him so that Towns, who was the incumbent, saw that Hakeem could get elected. Right, yeah. But I don't spend as much time on it now. I spend more time thinking and writing and have this new radio show than I do raising money.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, tell us.
Well, it's called, guess what? Effective Radio. And the word effective exists because in '66 my father had a committee for an effective Constitution. And we will do exactly what we're doing here today, except you're fancy, you're on TV, I'm just a little old radio show.
Where is it, in New York City?
New York City, AM 970, Sunday 11 to 12. And we're going to put thoughtful people on. We met today with the head of the State Bar Association.
David Miranda?
Yes, doing some fascinating work, and I want him to come on and talk.
He does intellectual property law.
Yes, he is, but he's got a one-year term as president of the Bar Association. He's doing some wonderful work to get people to discuss whether we should have a constitutional convention or not. They're not taking a position one way or another.
Well, what would be mainly ideas you would like to see changed in the Constitution?
Well, I'll tell you, number one, New York State is the only state that charges our counties $2.2 billion in county property tax for Medicaid. We can reduce our county Medicaid taxes outside of New York City by 49%, not this 2% tax cap. Why? All 49 other states consolidate Medicaid at the state level. Federal pays part, state's part. That totally changes the economy of upstate New York. A 50% tax deduction. The '67 Constitutional Convention said there shall be no Medicaid local share. So that's an example. It's totally outdated. Without going into detail, because I could take a whole hour, our educational amendment, which is always a debate, okay, was written when Pettibone Flower, you know Pettibone?
Nope.
Was governor from Watertown. It was written in 1894.
Roswell P. Flower.
You got it. Oh boy, you're the first, I can't go up, you're the first person ever to know that. That's impressive, Mark. But our whole educational system debate is because we haven't changed that clause since 1894. So there are a myriad of things like that are just outdated and we ought to look at, and we don't realize are affecting all our policy.
I don't know where to go with the with the governor trivia there, but I have to tell you, when they put up the big portraits on the second floor, they had Governor Odell with an O apostrophe D-E-L-L, and I went to the guy and I said, he's not Irish. Not Irish. Take the apostrophe out, lowercase d, make it one word, wonderful. Odell. And so the Howard, who was in charge of all that on the second floor, went, oh, I can't believe you found the typo.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I'm still working on trying to find a verified picture of the 7th governor of New York, because there's no verifiable picture yet. I have a picture, but we couldn't verify that it's actually him.
Well, that's great.
So I'm still working on that. I'm a history buff, I guess.
Yeah, you should be the New York State historian. That's
well,
what that'd be another
someone's got to
job.
put a good word in for me. Tell me about your 2010 Lieutenant Governor campaign, or not. Or
Well, you
was
may
or
not
wasn't.
like what you hear.
No, I want to hear. That's why
I had
asked
no
you.
interest in being lieutenant governor
Okay.
because I was frustrated how Spitzer let us down, how Patterson let us down, and I've been very helpful. I was an Andrew Cuomo supporter. I said to Andrew and his people, guys, we got to change our corrupt Democratic Party. And the reason I'm going to run for lieutenant governor is not because I want to be your lieutenant governor. See if you get this one.
Okay.
What's the other title a lieutenant governor has?
President.
I
Of the
said, I want to
Senate.
be president of the state senate. I've worked there for years to raise money. I'm going to take Pedro Espada out with an independent expenditure. Sit up there, bang the gavel, and say, if you other guys don't get your act straight up, we activists are going to take you out too. Long and the short of it, Andrew didn't want me to do it and made me a whole bunch of promises on things he would do if I didn't run. I said, fine. I was elated, and I never heard from him again.
Well,
What can I say? It's just the truth.
but, you know, maybe he wants a balanced ticket, not just upstate down. I mean, you know, not that it has to be balanced, because we saw how people won. I mean, Elliot Spitzer and David Patterson were
Right.
both from Manhattan, you know, they're
Right.
both. So it doesn't have to be balanced, but maybe he wanted an upstater. I mean. and
No,
then-
I think he did, and there's nothing wrong with that. I happen to like Bob Duffy, who was his pick. I became friends with Bob. That wasn't my point.
No,
My point is, I want change,
right.
and whether it comes from the Republican or Democratic Party, I'm tired of the situation up here, and that's how I spend my time.
But you know who's that sounds like? I hate to say this, but Betsy McCoy Ross.
I don't know her.
But she wanted change. And she even made a point about when Pataki wanted to go along and get along, she made a point of being independent and going to the assembly and talking to them independently of the governor and sort of being this loose cannon. And even, Mary Ann Krupczak.
Yes, I know Mary Ann.
She primaried Hugh Carey on the third term because she wanted more independence.
You know who should be his running mate next time? Andrew?
Oh.
You.
Oh.
Yeah,
Upstater.
we're trying to get him a job over there.
In-depth thinking, no more than I do or Andrew do about state government. No, but so these are good, deep points.
Yeah, and there has not been a successful first-term governor, since Malcolm Wilson. Malcolm Wilson was the last first-term governor that lasted beyond the first term. The first lieutenant governor
Yes.
that lasted beyond the first term.
That's a very good point.
And it's just amazing how there's that delicate balance. Even when, obviously Mario Cuomo was, quote-unquote, stuck with Al Del Bello.
Yes.
Al Del Bello left after 2 years, and then he had 2 years with no lieutenant, and then all of a sudden he found Stan Lundeen, who was a loyal partner for 8 years.
Right.
Now maybe Andrew didn't.
No, he wanted
Maybe-
a week one, and that's fine. My point was really different.
I know.
I expected
I'm picking
Andrew
up on something else.
to really not shut down the Moreland Commission because of pressure from Sully Silver and Dean Skelos. I mean, that's his chance. If you're going to change Albany, and I love that he announced it, you don't back off it and then find out the guys that are pressuring you are indicted.
Yeah, I know.
That's not the type of leadership we need.
And he's been silent about it,
Yeah.
pretty much. And
Yeah.
Andrew has been silent about the Moreland Commission
Yeah.
and why he put it down. And do you believe that it was because he knew that there were
Oh, there's
connections
no-
between Shelley Silver, Dean Skelos?
There is
and-
no doubt, and by the way, I think Andrew's honest. That's not
Oh,
my
he is.
point.
I know.
Doesn't mean he's not going to get in trouble in Buffalo with Pococco and Pigeon. That
Yeah.
we'll wait and see what happens.
No.
But I believe he's honest. No, I think the legislators, in particular Skelos and Silver, were very nervous. They knew what problems they had. Whether Andrew knew, he knew they wanted it shut down. If he wanted to work with them, they were saying, shut this down or we're going to cause problems with you. And he shouldn't have done it.
No, he should have stayed up there
Yes.
and stood his ground.
Yeah, that's, when someone comes after you and threatens you, I don't care for what reason, you got to stand up and fight back.
Right.
The more passive you are, the more they're going to hurt you. I mean, that's my view.
What is a blue tiger Democrat?
You shouldn't have asked. I'll give you a quick summary. Did you know that the donkey was invented as a Democratic symbol by a Republican?
Yeah.
God, you get it again. Thomas Nast,
Right.
after the Civil War, when Stanton died, who was the Secretary of Defense, drew a cartoon of a donkey with the word Copperheads on it, stomping on Stanton's grave, because during the Civil War, Fernando Wood, I'm going to ask you these questions, you won't get them.
Tell me about something from the Talmud over here. A Talmudic question, that would be worth something, I don't know. Marks the New York State.
Introduced a resolution in New York City to secede from the Union with South Carolina. It
New
stuck.
York?
New York City, a resolution.
Really? I never heard that.
Well, you got to remember, highly Irish Catholic. Okay, we did not want to fight to free the slaves. We were losing jobs because the cotton was coming up to the shipyard. So he invented the donkey, and we stupid Democrats, and it was meant to be backwards and dumb. We're still using it. Now, here's where the tiger comes from. In 1854, maybe I'll get you on this one. 14 firemen from Engine 6, which still exists,
In Manhattan.
still has a tiger on it, took over Tammany Hall.
Right.
And they made the tiger, of course, Boss Tweed, the symbol of the party. And it only, yes, the tiger was the symbol of New York's party till 1934, when people said, you know, it is tied to a corrupt Tammany Hall, and eliminated it. When I found this out, I said, you know what? We're going to bring the tiger back because he's a fighter.
Yeah.
It's the fireman's symbol. We'll take the corruption out, but I'm not going to be a donkey Democrat. And that's as we move towards 2018 to have a breath of fresh air here in Albany. Tiger is our Democratic symbol.
And I presume
And it could
blue
be your
because-
face. I mean, you know, you got the carrot.
But I presume it's blue because
Yes.
Democrat is blue. And
That's right.
Republicans are red and blue.
And you know what the
states.
Republican symbol was? Oh, I'm going to win this one.
Come on,
The
Mark.
Republican symbol
Ding,
when?
ding,
When,
ding, ding.
Well, in
1854?
this era, we made the Republican symbol because they were giving us the donkey, the lamb.
Oh, really?
Weak
No, I
lamb.
didn't know that.
You know, so we gave them the lamb. They were smart enough to get rid of it and stick with the elephant.
Elephant, because I remember the former state chairman, Tony Calavita, riding into the state convention in Syracuse on an elephant.
What year was that?
1986, was
Okay.
it? And he rode into the state
Yeah, well, that's
convention
right.
on an
That's-
elephant.
that's right.
And it was just a classic.
Yeah, we dumb Democrats, we kept the donkey and they kicked
And
the
you-
lamb
And I
aside.
never understood what the Democrat, the donkey symbol was. 'Cause
Yeah, but I won one.
that's
Yeah,
it.
Rabbi, you heard me?
did.
That's it.
This
I'm
is
a
an
winner.
intellectual contest here.
It's
You won the
okay.
contest.
That's it. You got it. So, what did you think? Who do you see as a gubernatorial candidate that you would like to have? Even if Andrew runs or he doesn't run, irrespective
I
of
don't
that.
have the slightest idea. I think Andrew's going to run. He likes being governor.
He does.
I think he'd like to be elected 4 times to
Right.
match his father.
Well,
And
not to match his father, but
No,
his
no.
father wanted to succeed, to
right.
exceed the terms of Rockefeller.
yes, okay.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the word on the street. I don't know. It's a long ways away. There's a lot of what ifs, but I will tell you this. From my point of view, and the other 3 people that think like I do in this state, we want 2017 to be an intellectual debate on what things in the Constitution need to be modernized. I want to use that as an opportunity to have intellectual discussions and get professors involved. In 2018, I want a breath of fresh air up here. I want new people. I want a new governor.
Do you see people like Todd Kaminsky and Hakeem Jeffries as that new breath of fresh
Yeah,
air?
I think I know them both. The thing I like about Todd, because my work was on the state Senate, not the Assembly, he called me up. He came in right away. I just saw him again 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Most people that were working for Shelley Silver at the time, or governor,
Right.
don't come to see me,
Okay.
okay? And I think he's got a great future, a great future. I don't know what he's going to do next, but clearly I'm an advisor to him as a senior citizen. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him on the show, so
Well,
we'll try to see what we could do.
You call me, I'll help you. No, seriously.
Thank you.
I think highly.
All
of
right,
you.
we're
Okay,
out of time,
so-
though. Listen.
Rabbi, it's a pleasure.
All right.
It's
Well,
a
we didn't
pleasure.
talk any Talmud, but
Well,
we only talked politics.
Next time, it's just you and me. He
All
beats
right,
me.
there you go.
Art, thank you
He
very
won.
much.
Well,
My
then I'll
pleasure.
beat you with the Talmud. You're going to be a loser. All right, thank you very
No,
much.
thank you.
Phil, sit.
Sit.
Phil, sit. We're not ready yet.
Well, just
Okay.
thank you very much.
So-
Continue good work. I got to give you a blessing. What kind of rabbi without a blessing?
He's running
Should
away.
continue with your good work that you're doing for the people of the New York State and do it with good health.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, much success, continued success.